Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fifth episode. Is this the sixth episode? Sixth episode of our weekly podcast, Just Politics, Our World View, where we discuss politics in Barbados, the region, and the rest of the world. Remember that you can find us here every Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. Again, let me shout out Sasha Lee for expertly managing our social media marketing this week. Excellent work again, and thank you. I am your host, Ayo Olalara, and this is my co-host, Dr. Terry Harris. Over to you, Terry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. So this week we have a guest, Dr. Ryan, or Mr. Ryan Walters. So Ryan is a business professional with over 10 years experience in international business sector. He also has an MBA specializing in finance. Ryan is currently general manager at a locally run international franchise. Though his political career has not yet exceeded 3 years, so he's still quite young in politics, his voice has been seen and has been a public one for the Democratic Labour Party. He's a spokesman for the party on business and is the first vice president and an aspiring leader for the party. He's aspiring to represent the party at the next general election as a candidate. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Welcome.
So this week's episode is brought to you by Thinking Analytics, builders of data models in the UK, Barbados, and the Caribbean. You can send them an email at thinkinganalytics@gmail.com. And now over to you, Ayo, for the weekly roundup.
Thank you, Terry, and welcome again, everyone. Welcome to the weekly roundup. Well, in Barbados, Nelson has been removed from the nation's capital and placed in storage, finally. The citizens of the Lighter Persuasion Collective in Barbados has cried shame on this action, stating that this is an affront to history. Nado, this is actually a correction to our story, the 97% descendants of the formerly enslaved. And whilst we're at it, let us go a step further. Let us put in that space where our Black enslaved women ancestors were sold, one of their Black woman descendants. And I recommend Robin Rihanna Fenty or Dame Nita Barrow.
Second that.
Can you think of a statue of a prominent woman in Barbados right now?
No.
So let's modernize Bridgetown, move it into the 21st century, and stop holding on to the vestiges that makes it Little England in look and feel. Let us create our own capital. This is how we start to move on and get over it. Not by forgetting, but by celebrating ourselves. And a brutal COVID fallout has brought to light a feature of Barbadian reality that has been swept under the proverbial carpet for too long. The propensity for hoteliers and restaurant owners on the island to basically further disenfranchise their workers. How is it even legal to not pay severance to severed workers? And then for everyone to insist that the NAS pays for this severance. Look, I'm pretty sure the hoteliers are crying out that they don't have the funds to make payments. And I'm happy that at least the workers will be getting some funds from somewhere. But what penalties or retributions will these hoteliers face? Do they get to sail off into the sunset on private yachts?
Possibly.
And what happens after COVID when tourists return in droves? Do these hotels and restaurants simply reopen and continue as though nothing has transpired? Do they simply continue to collect and keep their super profits? Who holds them accountable? Look, I understand personally that COVID has been hard on business owners, but just imagine what it's been like for waged and salaried workers. We need to do better. And perhaps the citizens of the Lighter Persuasion Collective could support the historically disenfranchised by speaking up on these issues and urging their peers to do right by the people who help them to be the successes that they are, especially after the countless concessions and investments made by both governments of Barbados, using the taxpayers' dollars, the tax dollars of those very people. And in the United States of America, Trump is still trying to personally and actively undermine the election. And he's firing anyone in his camp who doesn't agree with him that the election was rigged. Rudy Giuliani, though, was his star minion. At a press conference recently, Giuliani's hair dye tried desperately to separate itself from the foolishness, the lies, and the deceit. I'm dedicating this week's entire meme selection to Giuliani's hair dye, simply because it had the gumption to at least attempt to get away from that mess. Here are some of the best headlines and memes dedicated to Giuliani's hair dye. And someone needs to give this hair dye its own Twitter page, all right? I'm just putting that out there. Complex magazine reported, he's melting. He's melting. Look, I don't want to laugh too much during this. I've been trying to control myself. So I hear you on YouTube. I don't remember where I took this from, but Giuliani appears to sweat hair dye as he makes election claims without evidence. Absolute crazy. Rolling Stone, though, took a hit at Fox, and they said that Fox aired Giuliani's presser in full and then reported that it was all a lie. Fox News, yeah.
If Fox is agreeing with them, you know, something's wrong.
You know what I think is happening here? I think that this is his dark soul just leaving his body. Heresy. We hear New York Magazine. New York Magazine reported that Rudy melts down over Trump and voter fraud during insane press conference.
Crazy.
And Just for Men created a new product called the Big Dripper to streak those cheeks. And of course, it's sweat activated, but the tagline is the absolute best. You'd be a raving nutcase not to buy it.
Or a nutcase to buy it.
Oh, Jesus. And on that note, here ends the weekly roundup. Viewers, please note that you also have the opportunity to ask questions or to contribute to the program with your comments. Simply type them into the comment section below, WhatsApp us on 833-9886, or email us at jpourworldview@gmail.com. And to please keep sharing this live and liking our page as we attempt to grow as organically as possible. We appreciate your help and your support. And now on to our main program. Now this evening, as we said earlier, we're discussing emerging political leaders. Basically what that means for, the continuity of the Barbadian state. We have here with us, as we said earlier, also Mr. Ryan Walters, who's the first vice president of the Democratic Labour Party. Excuse me.
Get it right.
And their spokesman on business. Now, the Democratic Labour Party lost a record number of seats in the last election, and they followed up with yet another loss, with a large margin during the recently held by-election in St. George North. This has caused many people to make the assumption that the Democratic Labour Party is done for. I personally don't share this perspective, as I remain intellectually grounded in the fact that the party remains the main opposition to the ruling Barbados Labour Party in terms of support by the people. Additionally, the Democratic Labour Party has a long and illustrious history in Barbados and has historically been at the forefront of some of the more progressive policies during a time where it was absolutely necessary to take Barbados beyond the point of the plantation, still having too much power over the lives of many, even long after the abolition of slavery. We cannot deny the introduction of many policies which still stand today, from which many of us benefited and we still benefit. The introduction of school meals, universal free education, and so much more. But history is a strange thing, since its legacy can easily be eradicated if the future members of an organization are not steeped in that history beyond the surface. During the last period of rule by the Democratic Labour Party, we saw that what many interpreted as a repudiation of the tenets of the forefathers of that party. For many people, myself included, who appreciate history and the commitment to progressive ideology, the renunciation of free university education and other policies felt like an abandonment of the very essence of the Democratic Labour Party. And many of us questioned, what then can we associate with the party? Now, Ryan, I would be unfair really to attempt to hold you or any other new member responsible for the actions of the last administration. But democracy is important to many of us within Barbados. And we want to see your party rebuild. What I want you to tell us as a young and emerging leader within the party, how important is the legacy of the Democratic Labour Party to you? And what can be expected from young people like yourself within the party?
Thank you, Ayo and Terry, again for having me on the show. I must say this is the first time that I'm actually being in an arena like this since entering into politics. Yes, I've contributed, I've had interviews with the media and so forth, but in terms of one-on-one for quite an extended period of time, this is the first.
Well,
So bear with me, eh? Right.
Okay.
I think the legacy is important, and we can't run from the legacy. You identified education, school meals, and there's so much more things that you would have seen governments do. I joined the party after the general election in 2018 because leading up to that time, for me, I wanted to start to give back to the community. I had in mind a program that I wanted to engage in, but when I looked around, the persons that I had to bring into the program, 80% of them were political. And then I said to myself, well, I could as well become political. I do have something that I can offer outside of just doing community work. And so I decided that I'm going to take that big step and get involved. So when we talk about legacy, I think it's important to, yes, understand where you come from, but then be able to shape that legacy from the past and reframe it and repackage it to something that is new, refreshing, and relatable to the people that you're seeking to represent. No, that is where I see our importance as young people to try to bridge that gap so that we relate to people. We're not trying to change fundamental policies and fundamental directions, but we're trying to enhance that, but package it in a way that is really attractive and people can relate to. You have a situation where the Barbados Labour Party over the last 4 years was able to do that. It was able to capture the imagination of the people. They've been able to communicate very well, and I think that as young people coming into the Democratic Labour Party, as young people emerging, we need to better that. It is not a surmountable task, in my opinion. It's just something that needs to be taken on, right? But I also believe too that in taking it on, we need to bring some meat to the conversation and not just optics, and then we'll get into that a little later on. But essentially, that's what it is for me.
Okay.
So Ryan, welcome again to the show. So I guess my first question is in the same spirit as Ayo's. You know, we have the Democratic Labour Party, Barbados Labour Party. These are the two mass parties, the mass popular parties in the country that Barbados has known since independence, really. And the history of the country is such that most of the progressive policies that we have seen come into place in Barbados have been as a result of good Democratic Labour Party, good Barbados Labour Party leadership. But to be fair, you know, in the last administration of the Democratic Party was, and I'm being generous and say not very good, right? So I guess the question that I have to you, along the same lines as the question that Ayo would have posed, is what can we expect from the future? You're new to politics. You've only entered the arena in the last 3 years. You've joined the Democratic Labour Party. You understand the history and you connect with that. But what can we expect from the party going into the future? What is future Democratic Labour Party administration going to be like? Are you going to support free university level education? Are you going to return to that legacy of Arrowborough? What can we as Barbadians expect from a future Democratic Labour Party administration in government?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you go back to your comment about the past 10 years not being so good, your generous comment, as you say, I am not going to try to defend the tenure of the past and former ministers and MPs, but what you must recognize is that the so-called or the perceived shortcomings are primarily because of a lack of communication, right? It is not primarily on performance. You would identify things like numerous downgrades and so forth as economic failures. But overall, right, it was not a lost decade. But again, I have not come prepared, or I have not seen it my responsibility 100% to really go into individual ministries and talk about the things that they've done and so forth. But you would see over time, and you will get to understand that really it is about lack of communication, a lot of dialogue, a lot of buy-in, and just engaging with the people that you represent in order to get the buy-in for those things, and they move forward, and the understanding, the sympathy, the empathy, whatever you have. As it relates to the expectation of the Democratic Party going forward, I cannot discuss. Today my discussion is about how I feel, and not necessarily how the Democratic Labour Party feels, right? As a young man, I've worked in senior positions in organizations. I head up an organization currently. I sit in boardrooms from people overseas in my previous job, multimillionaires, people that have been very successful in business and so forth. And the same here. So leadership for me is a little different coming into the political arena. In politics, leadership is about negotiating your way and not buying, but literally earning support for your members and getting support that way. And that's how you rise to glory, I've been able to do that because I came in, I stated my intention, and then I got working. I got to working. And people appreciated that, and then people were able to support me on my quest as a vice president to become the first vice president, which I'm very grateful for. So for me, I see it as getting your hands dirty, working and building up a reputation of representation, standing for something, and just being out there fearless to support the people and to give a different alternative view. You would know that being a Democratic Labour Party supporter, member, candidate is not an easy thing today, given a 30-0, given the popularity of the Prime Minister and so forth. And my phone at first was going off crazy, without the, you crazy, Ryan? And I use it, you're not on the winning team, you're on the wrong team. Come over, careful what you say, do not attack the government, do not do this, do not do that. But because it's fresh in their minds, the spin of the Barbados Labour Party was powerful, so it was fresh in their minds. Today you go with, you hear, talk about this issue. The messages are different. Talk about this. Here's this information. Maybe look at it this way. More people are getting involved in even your contributions. I'm not ashamed to say that. At first, a lot of my offerings, was coming from myself and a small team inside of the party. But now you get support outside. You get people wanting to give information, wanting to share their perspectives, wanting to give some history on certain topics and certain things and developments. And I say that to say that that's the expectation of new people, to really get into the trenches, to understand and to work and build relationships. We are new, we don't have political relationships, we have friendships. People don't want to be publicly associated with political persons because they don't want to be associated. I haven't lost any friends yet, but they will make sport and they will say, well, we eat in certain places with you because you're a big D and this and that, right? But, it's really, the expectation is to be part of the people and to embrace, understand, and start to build and build and build around the people. Right. I can sit here and I can articulate many policies and many positions myself, but that may not resonate well with the persons that I'm trying to see. So a lot of the issues might just be awash, might go over their heads, they might not pay attention. So the expectation for me and for persons my age, new or old, or for our existing members that want to come to the front, is to come to the front from within the people, so that we understand the pulse of the people. We're not of fair wage and trying to combat the Labour Party for everything that they make or every comment. But when we do come, we come with some facts, we come with a position that people can understand. We ease off the political jargon a bit, but still give a little punches. But, you know, so it's a little different. When there's a little evening out of the political landscape, then we can get wild and nasty in terms of being the normal political party or political person. But I think the expectation is for us to build our confidence, put ourselves out there, talk to the people, socialize with the people, and build up what we will call our manifesto, our things that we need to hold on to from in that grouping and push forward.
Yeah, so I know you said earlier that, well, that you're here to speak for yourself, which makes sense, not necessarily for the Democratic Party, but what are some of the policies that you would like to see coming of the Democratic Party? What are some of the ideas?
Okay.
And also, you mentioned earlier that, you know, you're trying to build community. Essentially, is what you're trying to do right now. You're at that essentially confidence building, community building stage, and you mentioned that in the prior administration, I wasn't asking you really to go there. I was hoping.
Yeah, that's fine.
But you tried to defend them.
A little bit.
Admirable job, you know. But you said the main problem there, and we could debate what the main problem there would be, but we're not going to debate that now. You said in your view, the main problem was one of communication. Do you see going forward, how do you want to go about fixing that issue? Like, how do you see the party, the Democratic Party, this is going about deepening and ensuring that they communicate better to the people of Barbados going forward? So I guess that's the question. You set the questions after you coming up, right?
So if you start at ideas, first of all, this is how government usually operates. They come in, they install their board members, their members into board positions, and they get on to the so-called business. The longer vision for Barbados, in my opinion, is the level of debt that we have in this country and we continue to have, and what we'll call the enfranchisement, that's the word that's used pretty much, of persons. You look at a situation where, and I'll take the Barbados Labour Party, they have continued to run on this team of 20 years ago, which is that they were saying that the Democratic Labour Party didn't buy buses for the last 10 years, they didn't buy garbage trucks, they didn't do this, they didn't do roads, and so forth. But there's no vision to really change the governance structure, the debt structure of the citizens who actually are burdened with taxes and cost of living to support the methodology of 20 years ago, which is simply just that, buying buses, buying trucks, and so forth. What are we doing to our people in terms of giving them economic enfranchisement and opportunities? The government, I mean, you have to use the government just to bring my points, but the government purchased, I think, 33 electric buses. Government money. After they launched a TAP program that we started on the Democratic Labour Party, but launched in the Barbados Labour Party when they came to power. So you've seen the shift back to government spending and government control. And history will show that government is not the best person to manage any business, right? But yet we are going back there. Could it be that although we wanted to buy electric buses, we get persons and entrepreneurs on board to get into that space? Maybe, why couldn't we buy 10 buses and facilitate the purchase of 20 others? Why are we not mapping out for transportation? How many buses do we as a government need to fill the voids of late nights, early mornings, slow routes, and different things, so that we conceptualize and chart a path for the industry that will not see us 10 years from now when these buses need to be replaced, when these batteries are worn out, when everything is going chaotic, the buses can't make it up the hill because of this and that. When the AC starts to break down, when we start to see the challenges that we are again burdened with the expenditure of trying to keep the transportation authority on board. What are we doing? We have a transport authority. What are we doing to strengthen them as a whole, to regulate the industry, so that we can do more of enfranchisement, economic opportunities to persons like myself, to persons that have taxis, that know coming out of school, that have business ideas, that can go and buy a bus, for example, and make some money off of it, right? It frees up the capital, it frees up the taxpayers, and it also gives somebody else the opportunity. I'm not saying that these things are snap of the finger overnight. I'm just saying that for me, right, it can't be business as usual. It can't be, let's bring in 10 garbage trucks. It has to be, the conversation has to be, if we are going to sustain the debt of this country, if we are going to make sure that we control the taxes that our children will have to pay, if we are supposed to control the cost of living in this country and deal with the more important social issues, we need to identify those things that we need to give up and start to partner with it. Transportation is one, garbage is the other, and there are whole other set of, there's even evolution in healthcare that we can look at, and education, right, while holding on to them. So I am seeing the ideas into that type of, into the overarching policy and our overarching position that we need to stop burdening ourselves with taxes, right? We need to stop moving from generation to generation, asking persons to fund certain things, asking taxpayers, ordinary citizens to fund certain things and certain projects in Barbados.
Right? So then you are advocating for less government involvement in social welfare issues?
No, I'm advocating to analyzing what level government will be involved at, and what level government will be required to be involved at, so that we hold them together. And I'm also, but we still release the burden and release the management of those things to the private sector. But not only that, I'm also advocating for good governance on these things. How can we control? How can we put services in place that we can have a transport authority that is effectively working, has control over its members, and so forth, that there's discipline on the road, that the garbage truck people, if we privatize levels of that, they are regulated in some form, right? So I'm advocating for freedom, private sector involvement, freedom from government spending on some of these things, analyzing where we are, where we need to get involved, but for good governance of these structures so that it works, right?
So what about sorry Terry, I just wanna, what about the issue of if you privatize services like transport board and garbage collection and so forth? For instance, companies operate for profit. Therefore, I mean, bus fare is quite high right now. If we shift these types of services over to the private sector transport, let me just use that as an example. Studies have shown that bus fare needs to be at least somewhere around $5-6 to be profitable in order to turn a profit, right? This is why sometimes government handle certain things, because they're not operating for profit, they're providing a service.
So you're suggesting to me, Ayo, sorry, no, you're on the point.
I'm asking, how do you feel about that? Because I mean, if I were to take up the transport board, my bus fare would be $8. I don't have to care about Miss Brown down the road trying to get town.
No, but see, that assumption says to me that persons that own transport vehicles in private sector were not earning any profit at $2, and I beg to differ. They earn a profit.
You mean people who own a 1 vehicle or 2 vehicle, as opposed to a terminal with staff and all the other overheads that comes with a bigger?
Correct, but I'm not advocating for somebody to buy a terminal. I'm advocating for individuals, groups, people to get together and buy 2 and 3 and 4 vehicles, which is what's happening now. And these persons are making a profit at $2. They're making a profit at $2.50, and they're keeping the vehicles on the road, right? Yes, there are opportunities for government to get involved in terms of subsidies and duty-free and tax breaks and diesel and different little things that are controllable. But I'm saying the vision has to be, right, more inclusion of this. You saw the TAP program during COVID, and people have complimented how the taxi service, in terms of service, how they worked. I mean, in terms of service now, not these are our culture. So there's a great opportunity to embrace it and not go backwards, right?
Okay.
So to hear that there's another 10 or 15 buses on the way or soon to come, you know, it just spirals and continues spirals. And what happens is that then has to be managed 10 years from now with the ruling government at the time, which might not be the Barbados Labour Party, right?
Okay, I understand where you're coming from.
Right. So you like to see policies coming out surrounding transportation and how we could, I guess, liberalize that sector of our economy, privatize. I think you used that word.
Garbage.
Concerning deepening the communication. So I mean, we could stay on that theme, but I go back a little bit, and I guess to come forward. Concerning like what we can expect in the future. So we have policies. So you would like to see some policies surrounding transportation and so on. What about what do you see for the future of the party with regards to deepening communication? How are you going to go about better communicating to the people? Because you pointed to communication as a fundamental weakness in the Democratic Labour Party of the past. How do you go about making sure that you don't repeat that issue, communication going on into the future? I guess coming on shows like this.
Exactly, I was going to tell you that, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it is for us, yes, to put structural things in place in terms of committees to look at the communication in terms of social media management and being able to communicate, reach out, to have an open door policy that people can reach in. You know, try not to say no comment and stuff like that. But in my opinion, every person has a responsibility in terms of improving the communication. And we can't rely on a little committee or a group of persons within the party to handle that communication on behalf of everyone and with every single thing 100%. And I say that and I'll explain. When I communicate to the media, I try to present what I'm communicating in a format that they can understand. I try to communicate in a format that the average person can understand. It's attractive, it's in a little format, you know, you got a little logo, the words are clear. And you try to make sure that it is appealing. Right. And also, you can't put a burden, you can't get 30 people to come and represent 30 constituencies and put that as a burden on a committee of 5 or 6 persons. You have your Instagram page, your social media page, and you engage, you respectfully so, you be professional, you put your post up, you dialogue, you comment on posts. That is communication I'm talking about. I'm not talking about sending out press releases. I'm talking about being able to, you know, have a conversation with Ayo and not be afraid that Ayo is a B or a D, you know, but to open up and have those frank discussions and stuff like that, and then come on shows and hear your views. Everybody in the party might not like some of your positions. Right. Everybody in the party doesn't like all of the policies of the party, you know. So the communication to me is important. The fixes are community or committees around it. We already have the platforms, it's strengthening it, it's creating platforms for us to have a voice. But I have this thing about personal commitment of persons, right? To really bridge the gap and to develop the Democratic Labour Party in a way that it should. And once we have that personal commitment from our members, from our candidates, from our leaders, from our executive, I think we'll be unstoppable, to be honest.
Do you find that the Democratic Labour Party is, I mean, I've seen you in the media on several occasions, and I mean, and you're here, right? So clearly you have taken your idea of, you know, communication, lack of communication being a fatal problem or flaw of the party in the past, and you know, you're taking steps to ameliorate that issue yourself. But do you find other members of the party doing the same thing? Do you find that?
Right. Well, you see, Terry, it is very difficult for some person in Barbados, and that's another thing we have to touch on. to become political,
Right.
right? Especially to become political from the opposition. And it's one thing to be opposition and have a seat in parliament, but it's another thing not to be opposition and have no seat. All eyes are on you, and you have to have a broad back. You have to have support, and you have to have determination and all that. You first of all have to have a job or occupation that allows you to become public. And we find a lot of persons do not have that flexibility first and foremost.
Right.
We all have to support our children, our kids. I mean, I got 4 kids, they got a family, got mortgage and all that. So you got respect the fact that everybody will not be able to come out and do this. So the lack of interaction that you might be seeing now, I would say is primarily a result of that, right? And how do we fix it? That is, I don't know how we will fix it, but what I can say is that to get quality persons, and I use the word quality in quotation brackets, to get quality persons involved in politics, we need to release, and genuine people, we need to release some of the structures. So for example, why is it that a public servant cannot openly say he's going to represent a party or be a candidate outside of an election, right? So there's no independence for me as a person wanting to come and represent my constituency or my community. I want to contribute to the greater good of the party, but I cannot come and say, hey, I want to. You can't. And as you talk about expectation, that is something that needs to go, right? If persons are public or work in the public sector, and there are systems in place that deal with performance and how you perform on the job and so forth, those structures should be in place. And you should still be allowed to be have some sort of political affiliation, especially if you want to represent. And what happens is that these persons with aspirations are forced, and I use the word forced, are forced to join and represent in leadership roles in unions, because that is the only way they are able to build a public profile, right? And then what do? They do everything in the interest of their own personal gain. If they're the LP, they support the DLP and they bash the BLP. If they're Bs, they do the same, support the Bs and they bash the Ds. But they never really represent the full interests of the people because they always have an agenda. And we've seen it played out in that last decade that you talk about. We've seen the role of the union in our demise. And I'm saying we need to break down these barriers so that persons can come to the fore and not use the masses for their own political advantage.
Okay. Ayo?
All right, on that note, I'm just going to answer a question here. There are a number of questions and comments on the chat, but I'm going to answer one that is on that note that you were just talking about. Let me see if I can get back to it. I think it's Sudiata who was asking if the Democratic Labour Party, if you would advocate for the Democratic Labour Party working with the Barbados Labour Party, and I'm paraphrasing now because I can't find the comment, for the betterment of the citizenry right now, given the times, COVID and everything else.
Well, excuse me. We are working with the Barbados Labour Party, and I'll tell you how, right? We need a balance, right? We need to have an opposing view. We need to have alternative views. And we need to have persons that will pressure where there needs to be pressure, right? So I don't want persons to think that opposition is just about keeping noise willy-nilly, because it really isn't. It's about giving an alternative view. It's giving thought, giving somebody something to think about so that persons are engaged and they don't get a one-sided story. So if there was no opposition, there was no voice, the government operate and they will literally do what they want. When you are 100% embraced in a government and you sit on a committee, why will you sit on a committee that maybe will vote on something? For example, there's 7 people, there's a vote on how we will move forward and you voted against. but the decision was to go forward. Do you then come out and say, no, there's another position? You know, so it has to be a balance. And I think the balance here in opposition is working with the government or working with the citizens of the country to give that alternative view, and so that we can open the minds of the people, and we can also share some of those perspectives, because some of these perspectives are coming from regular persons and not persons that are political, and so that we can share those views, and so that we can then put another alternative to the government so that they can then consider these things, or they can act and make changes where necessary. But in the absence of that, you will literally get what the government of the day wants, if you look at it that way. So that's how I would approach that question.
Okay. All right. Dr. Hines is saying that she disagrees with your comment on the buses, though. She's saying that government should at least run a skeleton service, especially in rural and cross-country roads. And I guess she's having the same issue that I'm having with that type of policy. That if we privatize services such as that, it means that there will be sectors of the community who wouldn't get served, because profit is the main driver in capitalism. Yeah,
I agree, Ayo, but I agree with both Christina and yourself. But that's why I said they need to do some research to find out what will be their involvement. I never said 100%, but they need to understand what their involvement needs to be. Early mornings, late nights, slow routes, we know it. But if you assess it and you say this assessment requires me to have 7 vehicles in the fleet, 15 drivers, X amount of admin and so forth, then you go with that model. But to have a wholesale approach of saying I need to do all of this, that is where I oppose. So yes, I understand that there's a dynamic of that, and that is why I said before, and I say it again, it is to assess where they come into play as it relates to what their contribution in transportation and in garbage will be for the country.
Beyond transportation, what about healthcare and education? Do you also see room for, I guess, the private sector playing a deeper role in healthcare and education?
Mm-hmm. Education is evolving, and you're seeing a lot. You're seeing a lot of involvement in terms of private schools. And a couple of years ago, I was exposed to an institution that did CXCs for like maths, and can't remember the name now, but my son went for maths and physics and chemistry. And when I walked in, I was blown away. And they have full day classes, and so it's happening, right? I don't think that government needs to primarily create a space in the education arena. I think a space will evolve as the needs evolve. The needs of the students and in terms of the direction that they want to go. But there needs to be conversation around the curriculum between persons at secondary level, right? I believe that is a discussion that we really need to have. I see that, I hear talk about specializing, I have skills, I have sports, and I like that direction. But it just needs to be fleshed out more. I wouldn't go for a privatized push. I say I would let that occur naturally. Because persons might opt for their children to go private school and so forth. I mean, just facilitate where persons want to create that opportunity. But the discussion has to be around the curriculum and how we direct persons between 11 and 17 years old.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm gonna get her, but I'm gonna turn on my light because my ring light isn't coming off for some reason. I may have to send it back. But I'm gonna ask the question when I get her, turn on the light. Okay. So I just wanted to have, in your opinion, and I'm gonna rephrase this because this is one of the questions that came from the audience. So I'm gonna rephrase it a little bit. In your opinion, is a new, a crop of fresh new talent necessary in order to rebuild the Democratic Labour Party? Yes, excuse me.
Well, this is what I would say. We always need new people in every organization. So the fresh, young, new faces, yes, I agree. But we need to blend that into the existing, blend that into the experienced persons. I mean, what will be so good for us is a synergy team, right? because I don't see the party as you know, there's always supporters. I mean, we had a recent election and we had people that supported George, people that supported Verla. And one would argue there's a separation and so forth. That always happens when there's a choice, people choose and they go. I don't see a divided party, but I see a party that, given the right synergy, come together, could be a force to be reckoned with. So yes, we need that push of new young people, but I would not say I advocate for 100% of that. I would advocate for a well-blended team that can take on the issues of the day. We are all still learning. People that not even in active politics like Bobby Morris and all these people still have value. With George in his campaign, he had a slogan, everyone has value, and everyone does have value. So why separate, why kick out, why push aside? So my concept would be to have like a synergy team that just works on creating the synergies within the party, bringing not only young or old, but bringing specialties together, bringing persons in specific areas together, and then start to build on that platform. But there needs to be some new blood, and there will be some new blood, but I will not advocate publicly or behind doors to kicking out or excluding persons that want to be a part of that process.
All right. So what opportunities would you say exist right now for bright and progressive young people who may want to join Democratic Party?
Well, it depends on the level that you want to get involved in politics. Some persons will say to me definitely that they want to come in and they want to write on a particular ministry because they've worked there for so many years and they're passionate about it and stuff like that. Others will come to say, I want to be a candidate. So the opportunities are there. And, you know, in life, you have to create your opportunity for yourself. A political party is not going to sit and wait on you. When they see you coming, they're not going to say, I've been waiting for you so long, get up and applause. You have to get in there and show that you want this for yourself, to show that you want to represent the party, to show that you have it, and you're not just talking. So, I mean, my thing to any young person or any new person to politics, young or old, is that you got to stand on your own 2 feet. You know, you can't come and hope because you have experience as a manager or you have an MBA or you have 15 years in international business or you have experience in economic affairs, you know, or you tutor at university that somebody will put you on a mantle and make a way for you. You have to get in there and make your way for yourself. So you have to be very clear in what you want and the opportunity is yours to be taken. So we're not giving handouts. We're not giving any handouts.
I wasn't asking about handouts generally. I was asking, like, you know, if a young person, young progressive really are interested right now in joining the Democratic Labour Party, they want to make a contribution, they want to be a candidate, whatever. If you know, is the party welcoming people like that right now?
Of course, and we've had a lot of new applications. We've had, if you saw our platform over the by-election, I mean, we had some young people that you've never seen and never heard about, and from all reviews, they're excellent. I spoke to a lady yesterday. I called to order food from a popular restaurant, and the person said it gave her goosebumps listening to some of the new talent that we had. So, I mean, as I said, the opportunity is definitely there, Ayo. But it's for you to come and say, this is how I want to contribute. And we will welcome you with open arms. But all I'm saying is that you have to come to work. You have to come to work, yeah.
All right, Terry, you want to go ahead a bit and then I'll go back to the audience again?
Sure, no problem. So Ryan, I guess I will take you back to the whole discussion concerning policies and where the party can go from here. You were talking about the role that the deepening role that the private sector could play with regards to transportation. I heard your response with regards to education, but you were speaking mostly at, say, the primary and secondary stage. What about in the tertiary level? We know that the Democratic Labour Party rolled back on the free tertiary level education at the University of West Indies. What are your views on that? And do you see the government or the private sector playing a bigger role with regards to education at that level? So that's one set of questions. That's one question really. And then beyond education into healthcare, what do you think about the government playing, well, the private sector playing a bigger role with regards to healthcare?
Right. Yeah. Education. I think we made a mistake when we made that decision at the university level. It was corrected, so it's water under the bridge. What I would say for education at tertiary level or university is there's education, but there's no opportunity. And that's why I keep talking about private sector and how we can get private sector more energized, because there's a lot of education and there's not enough opportunity. And I remember I interviewed a young lady for a job, and she was successful. She said she had a degree, and so I told her, well, we only have entry-level positions. She took the job because she really needed it at the time, but she only lasted like less than 2 weeks because she had a degree and the job didn't fit the profile of a person with a degree, right? I think she went on to do sales. But we have a lot of education happening, but there's not enough opportunities for young people. Entrepreneurship is the best opportunity, right? And opportunity and entrepreneurship needs a structure. It does not need $5,000 thrown at them and $2,500 and top-ups. It doesn't need that. Well, sorry, it needs a little bit of that, but it needs, again, a vision, a overarching policy direction that 15 years down the road bears fruit. The Barbados Labour Party has not shown that. And that is my problem. They're operating for the now. They're checking boxes because their eyes are really on the next election. They're about winning elections. So they will check boxes to create their story, and they will promote it very well because they have a good campaign marketing strategy and stuff going. But they're not bringing substance and change. They're talking about it, but you're not going to see it in the policies. The university students, so you're giving grants to and small loans to entrepreneurs. So you throw small monies to entrepreneurs. Okay, fine. You call it seed. You know that maybe a higher percentage of them will not be successful, so they might want to come again and so forth. First of all, you have not really mastered the fact that most of these businesses are going to fail in the first or second run anyhow, and that you'll need to continue to support them. And secondly, money is not everything. We need to hold hands with the entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. They have developed a financial literacy bureau, and they go around being all academic again, teaching persons about financial literacy and fine and dandy. Sounds pretty okay. I understand the concept, but it doesn't add value to the person that is running a business, right? Okay. Especially the day-to-day. And if you create the opportunities for the university students, that becomes null and void because these persons are equipped with that sort of knowledge, right? They're equipped with that. So you got a couple, 3,000 people coming out of UWI, and if you get 500 to 750 people want to get into business, they're equipped with financial literacy. I'm not saying don't run a course already at top of mind, and you know how seminars go, it brings back some realities, some of the learnings of the past. But how do we hold hands with entrepreneurs is the question. The students now have to give back hours, for example. So why aren't we using that talent? Why are we harnessing that marketing degrees, accounting and finance, IT? Why are we not using that pool of people to support the same very own entrepreneurship? I talk about this. The Barbados Labour Party is probably going to use some initiative similar to this and claim it. But the point of this is another way of us helping or working hand in hand with them.
So you're helping
yeah, we're helping them, right? But it's essentially, you know, you use the talent. They may not have the full level of experience in terms of running business, but individually they will have technical capabilities that can support business. and it will come at a cost that is free to entrepreneurs. The biggest thing for entrepreneur is cost. Having to pay an accountant to do financial accounts, auditing financial accounts. You know, depending on the type of business, if you have a small retail business with 1,000 SKUs, you know how much money that is? You know, to have it to hire a full-time accountant to calculate your NAS and your VAT returns and all these things. So how can we use this pool of resources, technical people that walk across the podium and they receive their scrolls and first class honors and upper second class and they're bright, and they have nothing to do. Furthermore, we use them, but then it evolves into something more structural that we support them, giving them a little stipend and so forth. And then you have a system where there's a pool of people all the time. They might change, but the support structure to entrepreneurs and small businesses never change. The people change, the technical aspects don't change, but the support remains consistent. So we need to hold the hands of entrepreneurs. We cannot put them back into a classroom, all of them, because a lot of them know, might not even be academic, and they don't remember why do they have to learn what is the square root of 100 in my business. You know, I'm selling tires. I want to know about losses and provision of debt and so forth. You know, I want to learn about inventory and stuff like that, which is a little more practical for my business. So that is what we would like to see in terms of the youth, in terms of the education at tertiary level, being able to offer them opportunities. The program where there's a program that was identified where the private sector will take students into the institutions and train them. That is a good initiative. You know, you bring them in and you coach them, you give them some experience, job attachment kind of thing, right? So that can sustain. Some of them will gain employment also by those employers who are impressed by them once their availability. So that works. You know, that can be enhanced and that works, but that will not satisfy the bulk of persons who come out then and have to look for jobs, look for a way of living. So we create employment opportunities by freeing up the space for entrepreneurial activities across the government sectors in terms of opportunities, in terms of areas that we can identify. And then when they get into entrepreneurship, we have a steady base of technical knowledge that supports entrepreneurs consistently through the rise of their business to ensure success.
So I guess you're calling, that makes sense. I guess you're calling for clinics in that regard. And to the question, I guess you're seeing the role that the private sector can play as just being one of offering internships and those type of opportunities. You don't see any role beyond that for the private sector with regards to.
No, I do see a little bit more. But I was just talking to the dispensation of students coming out.
Right.
But the private sector is willing, in my opinion, will be willing to offer up opportunities in terms of employment, because I mean, COVID has presented a real situation of controlling your labor cost. So there may be opportunities for persons that were employees to be contractors, and being a contractor, then you can have economies of scale and do work for other businesses, where you then start to employ people as well, and recruit people that come out in maybe some Jackman Pressure Polytechnic and so forth, in the vocational training now, and then you can grow a business like that as well. So I mean, the burden is off of the employer on the business from paying an employee, paying NAS and severance, but the contractor, you're paying you when we need your services. So there are opportunities. I mean, we have to have like discussions primarily around this, but there are opportunities outside of just the job attachment program. And I'm not only speaking about clinics. It's not a clinic. It is a structure that stands the test of time. It supports the technical aspects of a business that an entrepreneur, a small business might not have available to it, so that it can flourish. If a person is running a business and they do not know how much money they are making, they will not succeed. People forget one thing. You are running a business, but you also have your bills to pay outside of the business. So you need to pay yourself. So how much money do you draw as a business? I did a clinic. I tried to assist some people during COVID with accounting support, not to do their accounts, but try to help them understand how to do simple accounts. And in the space of 2 days, and I'm not exaggerating, I had a whole month of appointments every evening, about 50 persons that wanted accounting support alone, had no money to pay somebody to do it. So there is a space for that. There's also a space for marketing, also a space for IT, also a place in terms of supply chain and trading and that sort of stuff. So I'm talking not about a clinic, but about a structure that supports the technical aspects of a business that entrepreneurs or small businesses cannot afford to have at this time.
So this is something that you would see the government paying, resourcing, or? So
the government will resource it first and foremost by the graduates of the university who have to in some way give back. Remember the Prime Minister said they have to give back. So this will be their give back. So if there's a 3-month give back in terms of certain amount of hours, they come through. Some of them might stay on to help, but they come through and they give the support and they move on, and the space is filled by other persons. So while the people are changing, the technical support doesn't change.
All right, Ryan, you are currently the sports person on entrepreneurship and business for the Democratic Labour Party. So I want to understand a little bit. The small business sector, and I will refer to it as the backbone of the country, because many small businesses are job creationists and they relieve the government of the burden of finding work for many people, including the person who starts a business. But that sector face a lot of challenges right now. Many of them, of course, are COVID related. What are some of the policies that government you as a government would put in place to assist these small business owners?
Yeah, so the first thing I would do is do just that. I would set up this structure that enables a person to get technical support. A lot of these small businesses, they do not know if they have made a profit or not. They only handle cash flow, right? They don't pay their employees NAS, they don't pay VAT, or if they register, even if they register, they don't pay. They're just managing cash flow primarily, paying bills, paying staff, and keeping open and taking money out of the business. And I'm not saying this to be insulting to them. I think that is the reality. So first and foremost, we need to let them get an understanding of what their business is doing. You cannot make any decision on a business if you do not know what it is doing or how it's performing. We talk about the banks and small businesses, but the first thing the bank will tell you is give me the last 2 years financials, because they want to see how you are performing, right? So you cannot paint a vision for any business if you do not know how it is performing. So we need to set that structure in place to help them quickly to know how they are performing. Once we know that, then we can have access to what they need, because a business might not need a loan of $50,000 at once, but a business might need the same way support that was provided before, but it failed. But it might need way support in some form. It may need money to buy stock, in terms of inventory turnover and stuff, because you hold stock and that's cash that you don't have access to. It may need technical support in terms of an IT infrastructure to set up point of sale system, to be able to manage the inventory, to be able to balance the books and cash and that sort of thing, so that you get better management. So some of the same initiatives that the government wants to do with the tourism industry in terms of the digitization and making them, they're trying to make a multi-million-dollar business more efficient, but they're leaving small businesses to fail, right? So you need to put that same emphasis and roll it down into this sector. That's the sector accounts for, I don't have the facts in front of me, but it accounts for a significant amount of employment, significant, right? And money turns. You know how a small business and money turns. So instead of trying to only create a structure where you capture how much money it makes, so that you know how much it owes you, or you capture how much employees it has, so you know how much money you have to pay, and yes, and so forth. You really try to help the people, man. You put the structures in place to help them know where they're going. But you cannot have only a subsidy for wage. That's not helping anybody. Everybody's business is different. You have money there, and people access the money based on the assessment and based on the needs. They don't access the money because they come and they have 4 employees and they want to pay them $500 for the next 2 months. That is nonsense. And it failed. They spent no more than $2 million out of $20 million. But I say it all the time. People ask me, why am I beating this issue? I am beating the issue because the government will say that they have spent $20 million and they have not. So I always ask for transparency. I want to know how much they spent. You say they have $30 million from the throne speech. I want to know if the $30 million is access. And the answer is no. Don't matter how you look at it, the answer is no. And they cannot defend it. All right, he started cool down.
No, by all means, heat up.
What grade, given everything you said there, what grade would you give the ruling Barbados Party administration? What grade would you give them, and why? And then what grade would you give yourself? I mean, you're in leadership of the Democratic Labour Party. What grade would you give yourself? You're in the recent verdict of the people in St. George North, right? So what grade would you give the ruling Barbados Labour Party? What grade would you give yourself? And, you know.
I would give them a C. I would give the Barbados Labour Party a C.
You're a harsh man.
No. Because the Barbados Labour Party is primarily good at talking.
Basically a fail.
No, but it's a bare pass. A C is a bare pass. Because they're good at, again, Terry, they're good at talking. So they get in front of the camera and they know what to say. But I just articulated to you how small business is, well, you're articulating how small business is suffering. And I'm articulating to you how they have not supported small business, but they have thrown all their money, or supposedly throwing their money behind a big business that's already making millions. But they're not going to try to put a structure in place to make sure that a person that's making $10 makes 12, right? And be sustainable, right? So,
go ahead.
So that's, I mean, that's just an example. So, but that's how they operate across all ministries, right? They're checking boxes fast because their eyes are on the next 2 years and 3 years, because they're about winning the election, and they will check their boxes and go ahead. So until we get deep into where this country is going in terms of its debt, in terms of its access to opportunities for its people, then I will continue to give it a C or less.
How would you grade it for its handling of the COVID pandemic?
I'll probably give it a B. Yeah, I'll probably give it a B. B, maybe B plus.
Quantify it for me. Yeah. What haven't they done to the highest standards?
I think I see it. I give it a B because I think, and to be fair, they've done substantially what they could have done, all right, in terms of closing the borders and so forth. Some believe that we shouldn't have closed the borders and stuff like that, but even if we didn't close the borders, no airlift was going to come to Barbados anyhow, because borders were closed. But I give it a B because most of it was reactionary, and they're good at that. They put a policy in place, they felt the pulse of the people in short order, and then they fixed it. So They should be commended for that. But they didn't have any. They didn't have any super policies that ran full stream, and that you can say, "Wow, that was excellent." So I give it a B plus.
A B plus now. But I mean,
a B plus.
Christina is saying it's a good thing that you don't grade students.
Christina, because I think to say that they weren't proactive is a bit harsh, because when we compare it to countries like, I'm in the UK, and we've been run by maniacs, right? And so we haven't had proper policy with regard to COVID coming out of this country. we observe the United States and what happens there. I mean, yes, Trump is leading the country, but the country is still being run by, they have a civil service there in America. They have all of these resources, and they can still see record numbers with regards to COVID cases. And right there in the Caribbean, and we have a sister island who's right now suffering because of the prevalence of COVID coming out. So, and these things have not happened in Barbados. So I think to give them a
B plus is a B plus is okay.
Oh, B plus. You're getting better, but I think a B plus is probably the fairest you're going to be. So
yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
I would say too that COVID is new, and I rate the government very high on the management of COVID for two reasons. It's a new virus. They had no idea how to basically respond to it and deal with it. There was no plan in place. I mean, these aren't things that small islands like ourselves that we deal with. Mm-hmm. And the issue with, I've heard the criticism before with people saying that the government is basically responding to the pulse of the people. But I actually think that that's a good thing. It means that the government is listening to its people, and I think that that's an important thing for any government, because you don't want a government like, you know, that who doesn't listen to the people, or I don't want to say the farmer, because I don't want to keep condemning you for the actions of the other actors, right? So, but I am speaking about the last administration. And I mean, we can't have leaders who are basically deaf really, to the voices of the people that they're leading. So to me, that's not a criticism. When I hear it, I brush it off, because that's actually a good thing. That's a compliment to my mind. Yeah.
And that's why,
there are other things I can.
That's why they got a DB plus. Yeah. That's why they got a DB plus. Because as I said, they've been listening, they've been watching, and they've been fixing, and that's what you need, right? So I'm saying that if there was less fixing, they would probably move it to A. But they've been reactionary in terms of tweaking and stuff. So you get B plus, and it's laudable. They wouldn't sit and try to. And ask Christina, B plus is a pretty good grade.
Not A student wants a B plus, but okay.
I don't expect any more from you, so I think it's B plus.
I'm sorry. Oh shit.
So health, you spoke about health as well, Terry.
Right. So I was trying to get your response to if you're proposing a deepening role for the private sector with regards to the healthcare sector.
Again, I think that should not be forced, but it should be encouraged. And then you will probably get the cost. The visit. What you need to do is make sure that a doctor's visit is at a cost that is affordable, right? And if you start to get the services more affordable, it takes the burden off of the hospital, right? It takes a person's putting up looking for a free service, because it's more affordable for persons to go to a private institution for healthcare. But I wouldn't advocate for wholesale privatization. I would advocate that health is one of those things that we hold on more to, and move those resources that we're spending elsewhere, and I dare say almost throwing away elsewhere, to be focused on strengthening our healthcare. But what can we do in terms of fostering or getting the private sector more involved is a question. And I always think about financial freedom for people. So you have a medical student, they go to university, they come back, they're a doctor, and they work in the hospital. They go work in a private practice under a senior, and then they move up the chain and stuff like that. But it seems as though the system is relying a lot on succession planning and not more players, right? So how do we get more younger doctors open up their own offices? And one of the things that we can assess is how much does it cost the government for healthcare for one person that visits the A&E? So what is the cost of government for one person that goes to A&E? And if we know that, then we can start to make sense in terms of how can we get other people in the private sector to be engaged a little more in healthcare. So if it costs the government $20 a person, that's for one person that walks through the doors of the A&E. Well, that's fine. But if it costs the government $200 a person, then clearly a doctor visit is only $60, depending on the issue or the first visit. So how can we get the private sector to see some of these people? Then maybe it's a conversation we can have, because the government will not be paying $200. The government will be paying $60, right? Or subsidize it in some form. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying to you that these are the issues that we have to consider, right? How do we ease the burden of the taxpayers 20 years down the road? And how do we provide that space for persons to want to become a doctor, to want to become a nurse, to want to become a physiotherapist? Those are the things that we have to talk about. So I don't have all the answers, but the mindset is to analyze it and do just that. Make decisions based out of the analysis and look at what is cheaper for government to do.
Yeah, I guess it links back into your theme and your responsibility for the Democratic Party with regards to business and entrepreneurship, right? In that regard, I guess your response links back to that. On the whole idea of doing some analysis on accident and emergency, I mean, we wouldn't want people. It usually is the case that when persons present an accident and emergency, or we want it to be the case, that they couldn't be treated at any polyclinic, because we have our healthcare system is such that we have the accident emergency department trying to deal mostly with the more acute care issues, and then we have the polyclinic system, and we would want it to be the case that individuals, when they present an accident emergency, that they really have a serious condition, and that's why they're there. So perhaps the analysis could probably look at the cost of treating individuals at the polyclinics and opening up more private clinics around there. I don't know, but that's
I mean, that's a good suggestion. I mean, as I said, I'm not one that comes and try to have a concrete idea, but right. The philosophy is that we are going nowhere 20 years from now if we continue as we are. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
we will be spitting mud and talk.
Talking mud, right?
Talking mud, sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess. Sorry, I'm going to come to you. I guess but you're quite right in that. I think the Barbadian people, for a long time now, there's a compact in Barbados where there's certain things that we have agreed to pay collectively, and for sure, education and healthcare are two of those things that I'm sure if you poll it in Barbados, it will poll very well. That we want government to play a substantial role in ensuring that these things are free at the point of service, or at least affordable. So that's something to bear in mind as I guess the Democratic Party seeks to develop policies to speak to the dual areas of education and healthcare. That for as long as I've known Barbadians are expecting this type of
and I agree, and that's why I say we got to find out, we got to shave off the expenditure in the other areas so that we can focus a lot more where we really need the funds. Because we should have a state-of-the-art hospital. We should have a state-of-the-art geriatric hospital. There are a lot of things that we need to prioritize, but we can't prioritize if we are doing, as I said, we're spending $30 million on buses every 7 to 10 years. And that's just the cost of the buses. We're not talking about the losses, the operational losses that these agencies will incur year after year.
So privatize transportation.
That's what it would do.
Oh, fair enough. At least you're brave. You're saying what you think. Ayo?
I just want to ask a question about leadership, though, and leadership of political party. I'm not asking about people in particular. What I want to know is that as far as as you are concerned, how important do you think strong, decisive leadership within a political party is? And what are some of the principles that the leader should expound and also follow?
Yeah, strong political leadership. First of all, I think a leader is someone that should be willing to be led, right? You have to be a person that is open to discussion and dialogue, open for somebody to cut you down and criticize you. And it doesn't always have to be constructive criticism. We want it to be constructive criticism. But at least, for me, when I get information, whether positive or negative, I am able to take out what I need to take out and move forward, right? I think a leader needs to do just that, right? But it is so important for a leader in a political party, in my opinion, to have support and a team. You have to build a team around you. If you do not build a team around you, you will not be the leader for too long, one, but you will not get much of what you want done, essentially, right? Because you wouldn't really have support and buy-in. So you have to build a team. You're open to engage persons, get their feedback, get their input, strengthen your vision around them.
Have those persons sell your ideas.
Yeah. So, but strengthen. Let them help you strengthen it, and then you go forward with a team. Yes, you are the Maximus leader. You have the say. But essentially, when you go out there, you can look back. You can look over your shoulder and rest assured that there are a group of persons that are supporting what you are saying. Right? I'm supporting your view. I'm supporting your position as a leader.
That makes sense. We never got your grade for the current leadership of the Democratic Party, but
for the current leadership. Well,
I mean, no, you're involved, of course.
So,
party itself.
Yeah, the party. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. No, I could give for me. I was only a couple months on it as first vice president, so it's too early to give us some time. I'll come back and send the rating later. I'll send the rating later. But as a party, I think coming out of the by-election, we've had a lot of positives. I think we've had a lot of positives. I don't know about what you guys have heard, but people that spoke to me directly, they did not even mention the loss. They did not. One person mentioned the loss, but not from a perspective of saying that we are not getting where we're supposed to, but everyone else, and there were many people that spoke to me on it, spoke about the good things they saw. Primarily, the look and feel in terms of the campaign, communication was on point. The quality of the content was very high. The presentations at the spot meetings was very laudable. The variety of the mix of old and new, that synergy that I spoke about was quite prevalent, where we had former experienced candidates, former experienced members, with some new fellas, some new girls coming along. So the party is going in a very good direction. And I don't buy into the notion that a defeat is this and defeat is that. The popes and the people say that we have done well, and I think we have done well. There are things that we could have done differently. And for sure, we want to make sure we check those off next time. But I would say we are off to a good start.
What would you say the biggest lesson that you would have learned in the by-election? From the by-election?
The biggest lesson I have learned is that election is won on the ground. The election isn't necessarily won by all those things we just mentioned. That is very substantially important, but your presence on the ground is the single most thing that a candidate needs to have so that it can have a real good chance of winning. And we were fighting an uphill battle, 26 years in the wilderness in the constituency, no seats last election. So, I mean, Floyd did well, he gained support, and I think that it was a good showing.
You had a question, Terry?
Actually revolved around the question you asked, because I was going to ask Ryan to any mistakes that you felt the Democratic Party made in the by-election was not attending the debates. Was that a mistake? Were there any mistakes?
I don't think there were major mistakes.
Somebody in the audience asked that question, so it's good that you raised it.
Yeah. As it relates to the debate, I mean, I don't see the point in going to a national debate with all the seats in parliament, with all the ministers intact. You know, yes, you get a chance to share your perspectives as a candidate. So I think the debate, not attending the debate was not a big thing. I thought though that maybe then Floyd could have probably used the social media platform to share some of his views on some of the same topics. Maybe that would have worked well. Now that I'm talking, it's coming to me. But the participation is near there.
What about the idea of considering the by-election a referendum on the Barbasol Party? Was that a good strategy to say that this is a referendum on the Barbasol Party?
Yeah, it was a good strategy, but we could have done better.
Even though you give them a B plus.
A minus.
This teacher bias.
No, we could have done better. We could have done better. We could have done better around that. But it is hard to do that very well when you have a cadre of new persons.
Okay.
In terms of the wealth of knowledge, institutional knowledge in ministries and different things. So we did it where we could have, and definitely there was some room for us to improve in that area in terms of hitting home a little more. So that's a point. That's a good point to make. And I'll accept that we could have done more, but I think the strategy was a good strategy, but it probably needed a little more meat and flavor around the issues.
Okay.
Any questions from the audience?
Just some comments and stuff. And somebody's asking a question going back to can we truly say risk management has been on top during COVID and the effects brought on, I guess the effects to businesses and small, medium, and large worldwide, regionally and locally. I'm a little confused at the question, but I guess he's asking if risk management has been used during COVID. I don't know if that's a question that you can answer. I think that would be targeted at the ruling government. Mm-hmm. Douglas Trotman, he's asking, he is a long post, but I'm just gonna read the first paragraph where he basically said that he joined late, but you can work with the party in power when you own your ideas or projects that cannot be ignored by the government, and the public is aware who brought the idea or project to the table for their benefit. I guess that's going back to where we were asking or talking about earlier about the opposition working with the current government. But I'll also say that Dr. Hines also said, why would the opposition work with the sitting government to help them to win the government again? I mean, this is a feature of two-party politics in Barbados, so obviously you wouldn't work with them.
Yeah, and I agree. We can make those claims outside of sitting at the table with them, so I quite agree with that as well.
Mm-hmm. And Guy Samer is saying, what COVID policies did the government implement that were not copied from abroad?
Oh, the government is good at copying. I think the government is a PS government.
But why wouldn't the government use the response recommendations from the World Health Organization? The World Health Organization basically put out what the response to COVID should be. So I think governments worldwide, and fairness to the government, will reuse it or are supposed to be using those recommendations, and we see what happened in countries who aren't following those recommendations. So I think it's unfair to say that about the government.
Well,
but this is not defending the government, just saying.
Yeah. But what I was saying, outside of I take your point, but outside of health, the government has admitted to be copying policies from outside and wholesale, it seems. And I would say that, so for example, the BEST program. The BEST program put some money to keep VA support, develop the hotels in terms of renewable energy, lowering their costs and digitizing and so forth. But they admitted that was important. and it's fine. But my thing is that you import the concept, but then you have to make sure that you streamline it to suit your specific situation, right? Now, the government is investing the money. They say it is not a loan, it's an investment, right? They're going to be trying to buy preference shares into tethers to essentially keep people at work. We know that it is not overly attractive because there is not a lot of persons coming to the island. There's not a lot of what they would call rooms being taken up. So there's not a lot of revenue. So persons are actually stacking up debt. It's really debt because the person is buying preference shares. And there's no stated, so because it's a share, there's no specific interest rate, but there's a coupon rate. After 2 years, I think it's 2%, then it goes to 5% and 7%. But then there's no time that, there's no specific time where you will get back your investment. But you will get back your investment first, okay? But this money is borrowed money, right? I assume it's borrowed money. If it's not, they can say. But so we're paying interest on borrowed money. And we have timelines where we have to pay back borrowed money, right? So how do we then manage? My issue all the time is what happens 7 years from now, 5 years from now, 3 years from now? What happens then when the tourism is now starting back? You'll not earn back your preference share because the entities are still holding the capital. When do you have to pay this debt back? What happens? How much money would you have at your disposal? Or do we have to incur more debt to pay our debt? Do we have to do a debt restructuring again? And also, the government just wrote off $1 billion in debt and tax, VAT, owed to the government, $1 billion. So will we see a situation where 7 years from now, we have to write off that $300 million investment in the hotel sector? Those are the questions. We're dealing with taxpayers' money, right? So it's fine to try to maintain jobs in an environment where there's not a lot of surety, and that's fine. But there has to be other ways that we can package and support our people through this time, other than just putting money where we don't know how it is going to be recovered and at what rate it's going to be recovered at.
Okay. Another question here from Sean Knight. He's saying entrepreneurship in Barbados is primarily focused on engaging the local market, but we may be missing the opportunity to capitalize on the external market. Does Ryan or the new DLP have any ideas he can share about how to reorient Barbadian entrepreneurs to focus more globally? Are there any specific countries, regions, or industries you think would be of interest to Barbadian entrepreneurs?
Right. First of all, it's Ryan and the DLP. I'm not sure what the new DLP. It's the DLP. Not trying to push a new agenda.
He may be saying what the people want, but let's carry on.
Okay. I think it's a very good comment, worthy of definitely some discussion and some research. What I would say though is our resource that we have is people, right? We have people. We have an intellectual person to market, right? You see how important international business is to the country, and that's because we have accountants, legal framework. We have the skills sets that these people need. But the country continues to export laborers. You're exporting people to go and make up beds and things in hotels and pick corn, cotton, and all these things. That is the most crap in 2021. Going forward, we should be looking to be exporting 1,000 graduates. We should be looking to export the intellectual capability of resource. I'm not saying there's a space for persons to go and earn at lower levels, but there needs to be energy behind a different mindset that propels that person. We're asking this person to go and get CVQs, to go and become a skilled at this and qualification, paper this, degree this, diploma this, certification this, but yet we are taking what we'll call the end of the barrel, the working class person at the lower levels to Canada. Why can't we be exporting these people to Dubai and different regions? Find the space and get the agreements to take our people out. That is entrepreneurship in itself. Entrepreneurship is not only about making a product and exporting it. It's about how do everybody gets the opportunity to earn. And we can, and with COVID, we can do that more, even more from ourselves. So we talk about the welcome stamp, but how can we market our persons to sit at home and do the work that they do, accounts, finance, marketing, to persons that are businesses from different jurisdictions, from different regions in the world. So those are discussions we have to have. I like the comment. I think it's the direction that we need to go. But again, the government doesn't really have a vision. They're just checking boxes for tomorrow because election can get called soon and they're placing the candidates and so forth. So that's what's important. Right, Ayo?
I listen to you. What I will tell you though is that we lose a lot of people annually, a lot of graduates who come out to the university and opt to leave the island to work in other spaces. And I'm not just talking about the people who the government will organize, because I can see how the government would organize to have people pick apples and so forth in Canada. I can see how that's easier organized. I think we lose too many of our graduates right now. I would like to see a space where we retain a number of the people who come out of university, who studied, I don't know what the correct terminology, Terry will have to help me here because this is his field. I mean, we lost Terry, but people who would have studied things like, what do you call it, dealing with data and the whole computers and all these types of things, people who, yeah, we lose a lot of those people, and we lose them primarily because there's not a market here generally for them. So I don't know if I would want to advertise. Somebody said something. Let me see if my audio is back up. Say something, Terry.
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I can hear now. Right. So I wouldn't necessarily want to. This is me personally. I would want to try to retain some of those people and build a market here where we can actually take advantage of those people. But
yeah,
I hear what you're.
But I just to comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to tell me what percentage of persons are actually getting opportunities outside vis-a-vis the pool of graduates, and at what scale. But remember, right?
I think majority of the people who study computer at a higher level.
So that's a specific
very
area.
specific area.
Right. Okay. Fine. Right. But but the point remains that we're looking at opportunities for the masses, for the persons that are doing general things, that have the skills, capability, right? And we know that we send people to other offshore jurisdictions to do offshore, to work in offshore, to teach, and to be policemen and stuff like that. But the needs, all I'm saying is focus needs to be enhanced, because if we are able to market Barbados, market the welcome stamp and other things so nice, we can market our people and make it a staple that people have something to look forward to. You know, somebody wants to go here, so somebody said, I'm going to UE. But what you're going to have is that people saying it don't make any sense, and people just going, and at the end of the day, when they come out, you know, they end up, you know, doing something less desirable.
Mm-hmm. Terry,
So
sorry, go on, Terry. You on.
From Anderson Cave. What business continuity policies would Mr. Walters put in place to avoid fallout from pandemics and its effect on the economy?
Mm-hmm.
So what policies would you have put in place at this point in business policies?
This is for the private sector?
I guess to avoid economic fallout in general.
Economic fallout in general. I don't know. I don't know if you can regulate businesses to that level. What you can definitely do though is that you can manage your resources. And let's look at the National Insurance Scheme, right? Where many governments, B and D, have used the funds on the national insurance to advance projects and different things for the people of Barbados, on behalf of the people of Barbados. And they've lost in a lot of situations as well, right? So we need to make sure, as I said, that we are using our resources. We are writing off $1 billion in debt instead of trying to give interest-free holidays and so forth to encourage persons to pay, right? So the most that a government, in my opinion, can do is better manage its affairs. We don't want to tighten to the fact that you affect unemployment, the employment levels in the institutions, but without creating opportunity. But you definitely look at where you're spending your money, and you definitely look at where you're earning your money, and you safeguard that. So the NAS is something that needs to be protected. It is what I would call it free money, because we have no choice but to dump money into the funds in the NAS every month. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be managed very efficiently. It cannot be that the government has just restructured the national insurance debt in the whole BERT program. And so we lose money there, we lost money there. But then they said they're going to build a new fire station and they're going to use money for the NAS. So you see what I'm saying? I'm saying that we can't continue on like this. And this is not a conversation for the Barbados Party. This is a conversation for whoever is in government. We have to secure the purse of the people of Barbados in a way that can sustain them in times of need. So that $4 billion reserves that the chairman of the NAS just identified yesterday at the press conference, maybe that should be $7 billion. You know, so we need to safeguard these things to help us in the times of need. In terms of the private sector, I mean, I don't think you want to encourage the private sector to save reserves. You want to encourage them to reinvest and expand. So that's a little ticklish. I mean, cash is king. So I know for sure the private sector will be looking at resilience going forward in terms of how they manage their operation, their expenses. But they will also be looking, obviously, to put some money aside for a rainy day, because a rainy day might come again and you might need 6 months of cash flow to help you sustain your business, just to stay open. So that's my quick answer to that.
All right. I think this question was asked before, but I think we have the audience is turning over. So I'm just going to answer it again because somebody else is asking a similar question. He's saying that entrepreneurship fuels, this is Jerome, he's saying entrepreneurship fuels and drives an economy through turbulent times. Hence, it would be wise for the government to place as much emphasis on entrepreneurship as they do on tourism. So along with the trust fund loans, what additional policies would you implement for entrepreneurs to gain access to more business, whether it be in with government tenders, locally or internationally?
Yeah, so small business, I mean, it's very hard to wrap your head around the entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship spans all sectors, you know, from education, health, legal, everything. And entrepreneurship needs money. Entrepreneurship, first to build it, it needs funding. It doesn't need what we would say just quick loans. It needs a sustainable resource. Do we have the money to do it? I don't know, right? I don't know. But what we can do is we can look to open up the opportunities. As I said, it's okay to open the opportunity, but if you're opening the opportunity and leaving the people on their own to build, I don't think that it will be successful, right? A lot of small businesses fail in the first try, the second try. You have a situation in Barbados where I have a friend, had a business, had a loan, it failed. He can't get a trust loan fund because of that failing now. So what are you telling entrepreneurs? They're not much persons that come out of their shell, take that big step to say, I want to be independent and be an entrepreneur, because that is very hard. There's no financial security for you, right? So there has to be a cushion we do not want people to exploit the government, to exploit funding, to exploit support, because that too can happen. But we need to make sure that opportunities open up. We talk about tenders. Governments have been focused too much on winning elections, right? So obviously they feed who feed them. They support who support them, right? So, and what happens is then that person's, you've heard, I'm not going to name any of the projects, but you've heard about projects where there were cost overruns galore, money wasted, everything. But you find people taking advantage of the situation, right? You need to create what we'll call, the former minister would say, a level playing field, right? You need to create a level playing field. But, huh? Right? But you need to create a level playing field that allows a person that is not political to get involved. That person actually holds himself to a higher standard in most instances because he wants another job. He isn't dependent on his relationship to get the job, right? You have a situation where these cooperatives are being formed. But how much work are these cooperatives getting? The Minister of Business recently went on a platform and he said that he had the pleasure of launching the cooperative of, these were artisans and construction workers and stuff like that. But I found out also that they only got 2 out of 10 projects that they bid for, and all low end, right? So how can we open up the space to give the opportunities to these persons? And these persons are not necessarily, it's not political association. They're genuine people who've came together to kind of create some wealth for themselves. And they're thinking, if I come together, can I get this $10 million project, please? Can I get this $50 million project, please? Can I get my economic enfranchisement from this coalition? But they don't. They still get $1 million project and $300,000. The project that the minister spoke about, he said they're on a project. And he was in his glory. But you know what that project was, Ayo and Terry? Those guys are refurbishing bathrooms at a school. That doesn't require any kudos for no small business. It doesn't. So that's the problem, is that everybody seems to be focused on getting in the net, getting in again. And not the greater good of making sure that we really give people the opportunity that deserve the opportunity. We open up the opportunities that other people can participate, and they don't need to support you, but they have proven, tested businesses. You give them the chance to perform well. When they mess up, they go. When they succeed, they get to go further. Another part of entrepreneurship is moving persons from beginner to intermediary to sustainable. How can we move a person that has 2 employees earning $250,000 a year to $500,000 next year to 5 employees? That is, we need to make sure that persons are moving. And again, it goes back to that structure. If they don't know what they're doing, they can't move, right? A lot of persons will tell you that they have jobs and they had side hustles before COVID. Only after COVID presented itself and they didn't have a job and their side hustle became their main bread and butter, they will tell you that they now realize that they have not been making money. Because for them, it was just doing something to bring in money. It was not measurable. They were just doing it to get a couple $100, but they were spending more than they were making. But only now they've sat and done a quick analysis, they realize, hey, I've not been making money. And hey, I've not been pricing properly. So I've been making money, I've not capitalized enough. So we need to make sure we have the structures in place, and then we need to make sure we put on our bureaucracy, we take off our political hats, and we give people the opportunity. We give people that might not necessarily have voted for you or that has necessarily financed your campaign, will not necessarily come from your constituency, but you give them the opportunity to put their foot in the door and perform.
All right, one last question I'm going to answer from the audience, and I'm going to answer one last question because you have to wrap up soon. Jerome is saying again that when you look at the tender process to obtaining contracts, a lot of the requirements are not tailored to small businesses.
Right.
And I think I agree with him, and I think I heard the government speak on this at some point too in the House sometime back, I think last year or something, for the tendering process, requiring things like bonds and so forth, and stating that they're actually looking at, you know, not requiring those types of things from small businesses. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I fully support it. I fully support ease in the regulations at that level. But what is more important is getting the job is one thing, but government has to be very good at independently assessing. You cannot give someone a $20 million project and turn up at the end. You have to have something in place where you get a mortgage from the bank, and before you get more money, you're gonna come, you gotta get evaluations, the bank manager will pass at the house and make sure that it's looking good and so forth, because they're securing their money. So what can government do above and beyond what it's currently doing, if anything at all, more formally, to make sure that the disbursement of funds match or warrant the amount of work that they're doing, right? And as it relates to projects where persons might not have the bond, that might not even have the equipment and so forth, you give them the opportunity to say, look, I can do this job and I need this equipment and it costs $100,000, and the government can withhold the money and make sure they have the equipment. There are things that you can do to help, you just have to facilitate a lot of things, right? You can't be overly flexible, don't get me wrong, you can't be loose, but I am saying if we are serious about pushing the small man, as we will call it, the small business along, trying to make sure that we have a sustainable growth for small business, so when new entrants come in, people go to the next level and it flows and it continues. We have to be flexible in our thinking. We have to think outside the box and facilitate the type of things that are needed in terms of flexibility, access to finance, access to facilitating duties and so forth for some of these small business people that want to get involved in the bigger way and going to the next level. But we also need to make sure that they pay their taxes, that they pay their NAS, and that they do what they're supposed to do.
Fair enough. Right?
So we have to do that as well. Nobody should come for a contract unless their taxes are in place, even if they're arrears, they have a payment plan. I agree with that. NAS is up to date and so forth. Yes, those things are very important. And
I think all that is actually generally standard though.
Standard, right? That's standard, right? But so I'm just saying so because a lot of small businesses are not that standard, right?
No,
so,
I mean it's standard if you're going to apply for a government
in terms of the bidding process.
Have
right.
all that in place. You will not actually get.
Yeah.
Terry,
so
you want to ask? Sorry.
Go ahead.
You tell me.
You said you had a
lot. Ryan, you're the guest.
No, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Terry.
Oh, yeah, you said you had a question, so you go ahead and ask, and I'll ask my last question after you.
Okay. But I wanted to ask if you think, Ryan,
Terry,
that
don't do that. Don't do that. You're smiling too much now. Before this question, don't do it.
Let me ask my question. I am a kind person. Do you think that your party is ready to be the government again in the next election? And if yes, I want you to tell me why. If you say no, I want you to tell me why. And I want you to also tell me why should Barbadians consider your party as the better option to the current ruling party?
Yeah. We're a little ways from election. So readiness is in train, okay? I'll go to the question of why. This is me, I am saying, right? And I've said on the platform in St. George North, give us an ear, give us an opportunity to say, right? If we don't have the opportunity, if you give us the opportunity and you don't like what we're saying, You don't like how we're conducting ourselves. Fine, say that, we come back and we do what we have to do, we tweak, we listen. We're good leaders, so we listen and we tweak, right? We go on social media and we see the comments and then we change. But all I am asking for is to give us an ear and give us the opportunity of your attention, right? What you see now is, you see the LP spokesperson or business says, the government not, where is the $30 million going? Man, what are they doing the last 10 years? Really? Right? But you see a small business person or a government or associated company say, where is this money? And then you see, yeah, where is the money? So I'm saying, you know, give us the ear the same way. Do not paint us with the same brush. Give us an opportunity. We need democracy. We need to have opposing views. There are different ways to doing things. The government needs somebody that is on their heels. They're not perfect. None of them are perfect. None of them are perfect from the head down. they try to get social media perfect, but they're not perfect. But so for me, it is about giving us the ear, seeing what we have, you know, opening up to us, and go from there. I don't think we can ask persons to choose us because they want opposition 100%. Yes, that's part of it. But you know, we are going to bring quality. We're going to bring a certain standard. We have bought a certain standard. A lot of the things that our president has said, and some of our spokespersons have said, has been ignored. And it's been ignored because people are looking at personalities and they're looking to see if it is a political person speaking on the other side, right? And that is understandable. But I would be a fool to ask for anything else but an ear, a conversation, you know, to open up to us. And when you see us on the street, give us an input, private message us and tell us, you know, fix this, Ryan, this isn't working well, this is a good idea, send me a couple of paragraphs or something you would like to see and stuff like that. And to me, that's what I'll be asking for. I ain't asking for somebody to say, man, you need an opposition man and come and go vote for me or give us a chance and this and that. Our president, I mean, I support whoever's at the helm, and that is clear. You know, it doesn't matter to me who the president is. We support, we come together as a team and we present ourselves. We will be ready for the next general election. I am telling you, we will be ready.
Well, no, finish your thought, sorry.
And you can see that, and I will say it without fear, the Barbados Labour Party knows that we will be ready. You can see how they managed that campaign in St. George. And they were fearful. I can't say how they were fearful on this screen, but I know that they were fearful. And the quality of candidates that we will have and the contributions and the direction that we will take or articulate to the country, I sure will meet the expectations of our supporters and others who are on the fence.
Well, concerning the next general election, I mean, we're only 2 years, well, 3 years basically out of the last one, and I agree with you. You know, it's fair to expect people will be a bit apprehensive about the Democratic Labour Party, you know, given everything that went before. But so asking them for an ear, you know, that may not be a bad idea. Just for an ear. But concerning the next general election, though, would the Democratic Labour Party be better off? I mean, none of us know what the future is going to hold. We don't know how the ruling Barbados Labour Party is going to, how their policies are going to unfold. We don't know from here on out. I mean, in my opinion, they've been fairly successful up until this point. We don't know what the future is going to hold, though. But at this point, would it be fair to say that the Democratic Labour Party would be better off, or is this your view, that the Democratic Labour Party would be better off offering a package of, say, popular progressive policies as opposed to holding the Barbados Labour Party up to ridicule and saying, oh, let's have a referendum on their performance? Because in 2 years' time, their performance might still be very good. And in order to seize government and gain a greater share of the vote, it may be better to offer a more popular package to the people of Barbados. Maybe that will get a listening ear, as opposed to trying to hold the Barbados Labour Party up to public ridicule when chances are we're going to have a leader of the Barbados Labour Party who's still extremely popular in the country.
Yeah, and I think we need a mix of two, because they're not doing a very good job. They're doing a job, right?
You give
Remember, they're doing the C. There's a C, right?
Wait,
It's a C or B minus or something you're given.
Right.
But we go with you.
The health got a little bit during COVID, the health response.
how we smart.
Yeah, I mean, I take that as more a suggestion than a question.
Right.
And it is a good suggestion. I think
Would they be better
Yeah.
off? Would they be better off doing X as opposed to Y? Would you be better off
Yeah.
offering these policies as opposed to just going out and trying to critique and trying to say that we're going to have a referendum on the Barbados Party when, in truth, they may be still very popular, and in order to seize the government at that point in time, it may be better to offer a more progressive, popular package for the
Yes.
Barbados people, to get them to be interested in what you're offering.
Yeah, I think that popular package is what people are looking for. I think that is what people are, at least from my perspective, a lot of people are asking about that, right? About give us some ideas, give us way to think about this. Stop criticizing Ryan and write a suggestion. I gave a suggestion tonight about using the UB students and having that, not clinic, but having that infrastructure support, technical support, consistent. But yes, a mix of shaping how we see the economy down the road, our policies in terms of shaping and realigning some of the challenges that are fixing some of the challenges that Barbados face is important. But I think equally important is making sure that we let persons know and we critique, have a strategic review, like a solid review on the performance of all the ministries and the performance of the country. Because, as I said, there are things that could have been done better, there are things that have been left undone, and we need to highlight those things as well. So we need a synergy between our older members and the new members, and we need a combination of holding the government to ransom for its performance and also the progressive ideas that you spoke about.
Okay. Ayo, anything?
No, you can. You want to ask one more question?
Actually, that's it for me. I think.
Okay for you.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan. I think I'm gonna wrap up now, but I'm gonna give you opportunity right now to take 2 minutes and basically say anything that you want to say, anything you want to put out there. A closing remarks, if you will. I've never done this before, but I'm gonna give you the opportunity.
All right, I thank you very much. Yes. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. I welcome discussions like this. I think it's a chance for persons to get to know me a little more. Again, a lot of things I have said is my personal view. It might not resonate in policies from the Democratic Labour Party. But I want to say that I think that people can rest assured that the Democratic Labour Party is existing, right? It's a challenging time for us based on our last defeat, and I would use the word we are rebuilding, right? It will not be perfect. Leaders will come and leaders will go, members will go, members will come, and we will go through the usual wranglings as a party, different views of opinion. We should do this, we should do that. And to me, that is how we get better, right? What I want to see is I would encourage anybody that wants to be a part of the Democratic Labour Party, part of change in Barbados, to write to the party and become a member, to direct me, and we can have a chat on membership and stuff like that. But I want to see persons taking it seriously. This is not an opportunity. This is not opportunity for anybody. There's not an opportunity to get on the ticket. This is an opportunity for you to be.
It's an opportunity to serve.
No, but I'm saying there's also an opportunity for you to be aligned for the rest of your life to a party. So you got to live true outside the government. You got to deal with people that are affiliated to parties in your business life. You got to deal with people that that are diehards and stuff like that. So it is a serious step. But I would ask persons to take it seriously and to really come forward. I think if we come forward, and then if we have those synergies, then the Democratic Labour Party will definitely be a force to be reckoned with. and intellectually so as well. So, you know, I am very happy to see where we've been. I would have joined the party in 2018, as I said, and I'm getting to learn the politics, the internal politics, the people, the external politics, and so forth. You know, I'm stepping on glass, moving very gingerly along, you know. But you know, just give us a chance and be open with us, and invite other members of the party to be on the show. You know, and do not have a show where you're discussing issues in Barbados and not invite us to be a part of that discussion as well. You know, I think we have to be cognizant, and we're relying on the media, we're relying on guys like you to bring that balance as well, not to show favoritism. You might have your allegiances in private, I don't know where you stand, but I see that you have on a yellow shirt, so I know you sit well today.
It's mustard. It's mustard.
Close enough, right? But I mean, just give us the balance. Just include us so that we have a say, or we send a representative. They have so we always have a voice, and we have some younger persons. We have the youth arm. So if you have anyone else that you want to talk to a couple of weeks down the road, just let me know, and I will connect you with some of those people. But we are open for discussion, and you know, just remember us. That's it. Just remember us. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for that offer. I'm definitely going to take it up because, as I said in my opening spiel, I definitely want to see a Barbados where the Democratic Liberal Party is rebuilt and becomes a viable option again. This was indeed a great discussion, and I hope to have you back sometime.
Thank you again. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Ryan.
And to you, don't leave yet. To you, the viewers, thank you for coming in again today. Thanks to those of you who shared, commented, who asked questions. If you enjoyed this episode, please share. Invite your friends to join us right here next Sunday from 5 p.m. And to you, my co-host, Terry, thank you again for being here and the hard work that you continue to do to help to produce this show so successfully. Take us away.
Thanks, Ayo. Thanks, Ryan. I think you did an excellent job of representing yourself and defending the Democratic Liberal parties.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks.
And to the viewers, thanks for being here, and we will see you again next week.